participants we might have. So welcome everyone. I'm Julia Fulgham, Director of Advance, and we are really excited to have Maria Guy joining us today. For those of you that know Maria, she did a series of 6 leadership workshops with us last year, and all of us that participated really benefited and are excited to hear from her today. For those of you that don't know Maria, she's an alum of UNM's civil engineering program, came up through the ranks in the construction industry, and now focuses on leadership development and coaching. And she's going to do a sort of one-off presentation discussion with us today, but we will be working with her to do 3 linked workshops in the spring, and we'll be encouraging everyone who's worked with her before and those of you who haven't to join, because I learn from her every time we hear from her. And so I am going to turn this over to her with our thanks for making the time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julia. And it is a pleasure to be here with you ladies, and in really strange circumstances, right? Maybe not so strange because we've gotten used to what is happening, but it doesn't mean it's no less stressful. So the topic of today is going to be, how do I lead myself in the midst of a pandemic, right? And there's so many things that I am seeing over and over that clients are experiencing. And so I wanted to touch on some of those things today. And actually, I'm going to touch on 5 things that I'm seeing, and I hope we can get through all 5. But I want to make sure that you open up your chat, because sometimes we will be asking you to chime in and share your reflections as we move through these. So the first way that you can lead yourself in the pandemic is to know yourself, to lead yourself. I'm going to share here my screen, and this is one of the tools. Some of you who have heard me speak before are familiar with this particular tool. It's called Know Yourself to Lead Yourself, and this is what we call our self-awareness tool. It's self-awareness because it is something that we will constantly do for the rest of our lives. That's why you see that infinity loop, because we are always learning things about ourselves. And no one ever graduates from the school of self-awareness. And so the more we know ourselves, the more we can lead ourselves. And if you look at this particular tool, you'll see that at the bottom, we start off with our tendencies. This is what's hardwired in us. It's who we are. This is the way we behave. It has been a pattern for our whole life. And really, it's going to be a pattern for the rest of our lives. So we don't waste time trying to change our tendencies, because it is who we are, and there is a lot of beauty and there's a lot of good things that come from that. So what's happened over time is that you create these patterns of behavior that stem from your tendencies. So they affect your actions. Those actions have consequences, and those consequences shape your reality. Whether that reality is healthy or unhealthy, it is coming together. All of those tendencies, all of those actions have those consequences, shape your reality. So for some of you during this time, you may be a very logical, rational, factual kind of person. So for you, coming up with a strategy is very natural. Coming up with a plan is something that comes second nature to you. So during this pandemic, during this time, you may have found yourself kind of feeling like, I was made for this. I can figure this thing out. You might even feel a little bit of excitement about, okay, this is a challenge. I can take this. I'm going to put a plan together. I'm going to organize myself. I'm going to create a strategy. And what you might even feel invigorated. So the clients that are feeling this way, there was also a level of a guilt. It's like, I feel a little guilty because I'm not that I'm enjoying this, but I know what to do. Like something has kicked in me and I know how to handle this. Know yourself to lead yourself. So in that case, you've created patterns of behavior for yourself. You're taking actions that are different. This time has brought you challenge that has brought like almost new life to you. And there's going to be some consequences. Things are going to get done. You're going to be organized, and it's going to improve your reality. So know yourself to lead yourself. I want to encourage you to leave that guilt behind, because it's not like you're taking pleasure in the hardships or anything like that, but something in you, your tendency, the way you're wired, was made for this kind of crisis. And so lean in on that and bring that to the table, because the people around you need a plan. The people around you need someone to take charge sometimes and put together a strategy for how we're going to move forward in this. So lean into that strength. Here's my warning: know yourself to lead yourself. You may be so consumed with putting the strategy in that plan that you may be tempted to neglect relationships. That's my warning flag for you. Don't neglect those relationships because, well, don't you see what I've got going? I've got to juggle all these things. You're going to have to wait. You're going to have to pause. And I'm not saying you pause everything that you do, but when's the last time you had lunch with your significant other, right? Or dinner at the table, making sure that there's some rhythms and some routines for those relationships, those key relationships in your life, the people that care about you, the people that you love, that you care about. You can get so consumed with that tendency you have to organize and structure and put things together that you may be tempted to neglect those relationships. So how do you lead yourself? You make sure you make time for those. Now, some of you are wired not for that. What I just described is like, I don't know what you're talking about, Maria, but that's not me. Well, let's describe something different. Some of you are wired for relationship. Some of you are wired for, how is everyone else doing? What can I do for them? How can I support them? How do I help in this time of crisis? So your own core personal values drive a lot of what you do, and relationship is very important. So for you, you haven't neglected those relationships. You've made sure that those people are taken care of, or you may be feeling so overwhelmed with the workload that you don't have time for those relationships, and it's weighing on you. The heaviness of, my goodness, it just seems like we just go from task to task to task. When's the last time I stopped to just pause and enjoy the people around you? It's added stress. Let me tell you, I am seeing it everywhere. There was a level of stress that is normal. We had to get to work. We had to navigate through traffic. We have to pay our mortgage, all of those. And this situation has brought in a level of stress that has been consistent and has elevated and put everyone in a different place. So whether you're that very logical, rational thinker, or you're more of that people relational, what's the most compassionate thing that we can do right now? It's important that you recognize those are hardwired tendencies in you. You're going to have to create different patterns of behavior. So if relationship is something that's really important to you, do not neglect, here's my warning for you, do not neglect that strategy, that plan that the people around you are going to need to make sure that you're taking care of us from a relational standpoint. But are we going to be okay? Is someone worried about all of those other details that are concerning? And is it going to be all right? Can someone just tell me that everything is going to be okay? All of those things. Know yourself to lead yourself is one of those tools that can help us understand what's going on. So we can't lean too much on all the relationship and avoid the tasks, but we can't just lean on tasks and getting things done and avoid our relationships. So knowing how you are wired specifically is going to be important, so that you may need to create different patterns of behavior. I've had some clients that they're working in the same house with their significant other, but they never sit down for a meal because people are at home longer, they're working longer hours, sometimes by necessity, sometimes it's because, hey, I get 2 more hours to get work done. All of that can take its toll. And so this tool, how do I lead myself in a pandemic? First, I need to understand how I'm wired. What's my natural um, tendency or penchant to do certain things, and where do I need to make some changes? Why? For the sake of your reality. We want a healthy reality, whether it's at home, with our team members, with students, whatever it is. What do I need to do that's different? Remember, I said, don't spend time trying to change your tendencies. You are who you are, but you can not let those tendencies define you. You can include some patterns of behavior that will make time to spend time with people, or to put that plan together, communicate it to the team so that everyone understands it's going to be okay. We're doing our best and we can continue to move forward because we have a plan. Now, in the chat, I want you to describe what is your tendency, just in a couple of words. I'm that logical thinker, Maria. That's what you're describing. Or you might say, the relational side. I feel like I'm missing. I can't see people anymore. That's weighing on me. Now I understand I'm going to have to create a different pattern of behavior. So I'd love to see some responses there in your chat. Adrienne says she's the relational type of person, right? Task focused. That's Susan. Relational, a bit of both. Absolutely. Caregiver. Someone says, I miss people, right? A combo, a little bit of each. And yes, all of us have a little bit of each. Usually one wins out as that. That's my natural preference. Both, and it's hard to separate my own needs and focus on my daughter's, who's very relational. Boy, that can be absolutely, because imagine how complicated you are. And then whoever else is at home is adding to that dynamic as well, right? The lack of relationship is the worst part, right? If you're very relational and you can't see people anymore, there's not that, hey, good morning, how was your weekend? It is hard. I've noticed that my introverts, when we first got locked down, they were just secretly, yay, I don't get to see anybody. And then after a while, it was, yeah, I'm so done with this. I've just had it. It sounded good for a little while, but I am ready to engage with people. The extroverts have been suffering almost from the beginning because they miss that interaction. They get their energy from people, ideas, activities, and that has been missing, that face-to-face interaction with students. Boy, that can be really difficult, of course. So there's that first tool that I want to go over. This tool is called the support channel, the support challenge matrix. But actually, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm going to jump over to, I think we went through this tool. Let me go through this particular tool. It is called the 5 gears, and the 5 gears is a way that we can really begin to build that relational connectivity. It's all about increasing our own emotional intelligence by learning how to engage in these 5 different ways. Very simple tool, but very powerful. So 5th gear is focus mode. This is task-centered. You're fully focused, moving quickly. You're usually working by yourself. No distractions. 5th gear, getting stuff done. 4th gear is multitasking, working hard in various ways. You might have to tend to a child that is doing homework. You are attending a meeting. Someone is sending you a text. There's a knock on the door. Whatever that is, you are spinning a lot of different plates. Someone put it in the chat, right? That's what they're doing today. That describes their day. So many of us spend the majority of our time in that 4th gear. It's where we get things done. It's an important gear, but every one of the gears can be healthy or unhealthy. Let me keep going with the rest of these. 3rd gear is social mode. This is where you're present with people and you can shift down or up. This is usually having lunch with a friend, dinner with family. There's not really an agenda. It is really just enjoying the company of people around you. 2nd gear is connect mode, being present with family and friends without any work. This could be a date night with your significant other. This could be a date with one of your kids. This could be coffee with a friend. This could be just getting to know someone, and you're just really wanting to know, how are you really? I just want to connect. First gear is recharge mode. This is personal recharge. This is when you become unplugged. And depending on what recharge looks like for you, it's different for different people. Some people, a nap is recharge. Reading a book is recharge. For someone else, it's taking a body combat class at the gym with a group of people. That can be recharge for them. For some of my clients, recharge can be hard physical labor, doing something that they enjoy, gardening, or some kind of yard work, or doing something that can actually be a recharge. It's not always sitting still and not doing anything. You need to understand what recharge looks like for you. I'm going to go into that a little bit later, because it's never been more important that we understand, how do I get my energy back up? And so these particular gears, reverse is responsible. This is when you apologize. This is when you back up and you say, I did not mean to show up that way. Will you forgive me? And so the 5 gears, we need to learn how to engage in all of the 5 gears. It's not like, yeah, I'm a 4th and 5th gear person. The rest, I just don't really have time for. It will cost you something to not learn how to get in and out of these gears. How many of you learned how to drive manual stick shift when you first learned how to drive? Let's see some hands. Yep. I'm number 5 of 6 kids. So number 4 brother decided to teach me how to drive because I was too old not to know how to drive. And he just thought that was, embarrassing, terrible, useless, I'm going to have to teach you. Well, he was 12 and I was 11, and we took my dad's keys and he taught me how to drive 3 on the tree, standard, and absolutely, and he taught me how to drive. By the time I was 14, I was driving all over the place. This is rural Texas, bunch of scofflaws, and no one did what they were supposed to do, but we all learned how to drive before we were 14 years old. But remember, when you learn how to drive standard, it is kind of a jerky motion, and whoever's with you, Lord help them, because they are having to put up with you navigating how to get in and out of the different gears. Working with people can be just like that. It can be easy sometimes to get started, and it can be a little jerky because I may not like a certain gear and I may love another gear. And so it's really important to learn how to get in and out of all of those gears. So one thing that I'm seeing during this pandemic and how you can lead yourself is people have fears. There is pain. There is loss. There's loss of freedom. There is a hardship of all different types, emotional and financial. And one of the things that you can do is to engage gear 2 to begin to connect with people. So Brene Brown, who I was listening to her podcast several months ago, and she talked about this idea of comparative suffering. Comparative suffering, it's like it's human nature when you're going through something to compare it to someone else's pain, and then you decide whether mine is legitimate or not. And usually what we've been doing during this pandemic is comparing to something worse so that we can try and make ourselves feel better, or trying to make someone else feel better, but it kind of has the opposite effect, and it just kind of heaps shame on you for feeling bad. Oh my goodness, it's so hard working at home. Well, at least you still have a job. Okay, thanks for that. It doesn't mean it's not hard working at home. Boy, it's difficult juggling kids, and we're all at home, and it's, well, at least you still have your life. Yeah, but it doesn't mean this isn't hard, what we're doing. So when we don't make time to just be empathetic with people and say, you're right, this is hard, this is difficult. How are you handling? This is what my family has done. That gear 2 is you making time to just listen to someone else without judgment, without trying to solve their problem, and without comparing whatever it is that they're going through to something that you're aware of, because it doesn't really help. It might be true, yes, I still have my life, and yes, I still have a job, but it doesn't mean that what I'm going through isn't hard. And sometimes I just need someone to say, I'm sorry that's happening. Boy, that's rough. And that's it. And you don't have to solve anyone's problems. You just need to be a listening ear. But with the added stress that I was talking about, sometimes we forget to pause, to just enter into that gear two, just to check in with people, whether it's your children, your spouse, significant other, friends, family members, colleagues. We all need this. I am seeing this over and over, and especially with children. At least two of my clients have sat down with their kids and said, how are you? Really? I'm doing okay, mom. And then they press a little further, and it's not long before you get the tears. This is so hard. I miss my friends. And one particular mom said, I had no idea it was as bad as it was. He's been here since March. I go to work because she's working for an essential business, and he needed an out. He just, shed some tears, told his mom how hard it was. And she said, as a result, because he's a little bit older, she said, I'm taking him with me to the gym. And that has become our thing. We go and work out together, and he needed an out. She says, I had no idea until I had given her an exercise to work on that she realized, wow, I needed to get into this gear too and just check in on my loved ones to say, how are you doing? Don't solve it. Don't compare it. Just offer empathy. Just let them know, gosh, I know. I'm feeling the same way, but don't outdo them with whatever it is that you're feeling. Let that person just sit in what they're feeling. And that's one way you can lead yourself and lead your family during this pandemic. Now, let's hear in the chat. Um, do you need to get into gear two? Can you think of one person? Tell me your comments. Tell me what's going through your mind as you go through this. Remember, love is one thing that you can't run out of. Don't have a scarcity mentality. Just love the people around you. Make time to be empathetic. You're not going to run out of empathy or love for people. There's abundance in that. So let's hear some comments of people. Can you think of someone that you need to just have that conversation? Or perhaps you need someone to have that conversation with you, so that you can just vent a little bit without judgment, without someone solving your problems. Okay, all right. So Sarah says she's got some folks that she's thinking about that she hasn't connected with lately. Get into that gear two with those people. Extended family, we need to connect. We get so busy. We get so caught up with all of the things that are clamoring for our attention, work being an absolute priority, right? It is easy to get disconnected. So I'm good at gear 4 and 3, but 2 is harder. Carrie, I completely understand. I think I reserve my gear 2 for a very small group of people. And not everyone gets gear 2 from me. And so I need to learn to expand and check in on some of those extended relationships. Additional difficulties, complications with connections because of current world political climate. Yeah, even sometimes, just certain subjects are a little too touchy. Just how are you doing can be a question that can go in any direction, right? Reserve that gear 2 for some of those really what we call key relationships, the ones that they're going to be in your life for a really long time, or you're going to be in their life for a really long time. You will not regret making time, making space for those relationships. Because when this thing is over, whatever that looks like, you don't want to look back at a lot of strained relationships, because that's going to be difficult. Elizabeth says, I need to address gear 2. Same for me, says Teresa. No, Tara is saying in agreement with Teresa, gear one is dangerous for me. Okay, we're going to be talking about gear one a little bit, that we don't stay there too long. Remember, I said every one of these gears, there's a healthy version, which means we use it in the appropriate time. And then there's an unhealthy version when we either avoid it or overuse it. So somewhere in the middle between avoiding and overusing that gear is something healthy. A phrase that we like to use is every gear, every day. Are you getting into the different gears throughout the day to make sure that you are moving in and out of those different scenarios? If you need to concentrate, you might communicate to your family, I need 2 hours of fifth gear time, which means nobody call me, nobody bother me, don't walk into my office. I need fifth gear. Or, you know what? This is dinner time is gear two, gear three time. For the next 45 minutes, we're just going to sit down at the table. We're going to enjoy each other's company. The gears are the easiest tool you can teach to anyone. We've taught it to 6-year-olds. They get it. So it's one that you can use over and over. Gear two is tough remotely, right? Not me being able to meet face to face. Absolutely. Absolutely. Elizabeth says, I neglect gear one and two, right? And Amy says, almost impossible to find fifth gear with children around. Oh my goodness, you're absolutely right. My hats are off to the parents that are handling the children at home and still trying to do their workload. Boy, I don't know how you guys are doing it, but you are doing it. You are amazing. And if you're exhausted, I can completely understand. Completely understand. You're doing an amazing job. You need to hear that. If you haven't heard that, you're amazing for doing what you're doing. You really are, for juggling all of that. This was completely unexpected, and yet people are managing. Lots of gear four, right? Lots of gear four right now, lots of multitasking. All right, I want to keep moving through our list here. The next thing I want to go over is how do I handle this increased workload that we've got going on here. There is so much happening. And so I want to touch on this particular tool. This is called the communication code. The communication code says communication isn't just transmitting a message. We send an email and we said, oh yeah, we communicated with everyone. Communication is when the loop is closed, when the person receives the message that you intended. That's true communication. It's not just sending out a message, it's ensuring that did that person receive that message. So the communication code is a simple 5 ways that a lot of us tend to communicate or want to be communicated with. So critique, collaborate, clarify, care, and celebrate. The first one is critique. I actually want you to critique my work. I want you to ask some difficult questions. Tell me why this is not going to work. I want you to poke holes in the idea. Collaborate is shape this with me. I want to work with you. I'm not there yet, right? Build it on it together. Help me get the best outcome. Clarify is check that you understand. So have patience as I explain, confirm what you've heard. And then care is create a safe place for me. This is don't try to solve me, be present and listen to me. Care is what I was talking about, bringing into that gear two space for the people around you. And it's not necessarily, I want you to do anything for me. I just want this to be a safe place where whatever I say is not going to be held against me. You're not going to remind me. You're not going to try and solve my problems. You're not going to scold me. You're just going to be a place where I can, whew, I feel so much better having spoken with you. Even though nothing about my circumstance may have changed, I just feel better having had this conversation, having you care and listen to me. That's important. And then finally, celebrate success with me. Enjoy the moment, recognize what's been achieved. It seems like there's fewer and fewer things to celebrate because there's more and more challenges being brought. So it's going to take intentionality for you to celebrate those moments, milestones, phones. People have gotten very creative about celebrating and still being responsible. Do not neglect this, especially in this time when it seems like there's more work than fun to be had. It's going to be really important that you incorporate these. So with this increased workload, with these increased challenges, how do you lead yourself during this time? Well, the first thing that I might suggest is it possible to delegate? Is it possible to share the load with someone else and say, can you help me with this, or can you take care of this for me? If that is not possible, either because they're as overwhelmed as you are, or there is no other resource, then maybe it's time to start the do not do list, right? Sometimes we are very poor guardians of our to-do list. We let anything and everything show up on our list. And if you're like me, once it's on my list, there's a pressure to get it done. But I'm asking you to consider, guard that to-do list. Do things even need to make it past that filter of, wait a minute, is this necessary? Am I the right person to take care of it? Or maybe you were doing something pre-COVID that seemed like the most important thing in the world, and all of a sudden it's not. It is not the most important thing in the world, and you need to stop doing it. So I want you to go back to your to-do list, the things that you did last week, and ask yourself, was that really necessary? Sometimes we just get on this autopilot and we just feel like all of these things need to get done. Something's got to give. What is that thing that you can let go of that is not going to have a huge impact, and that you will be able to say, gosh, I'm glad we stopped doing that. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if the workload is getting crazy, then something's got to give. What is that one thing? It may be a temporary thing, and that's all right, where I'm just not going to take care of that for the next few months. Or it might be something where you realize, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't think it's bringing the value, and it's taking valuable time from what I am doing. So how do you use the communication code? The communication code is a way that you can have these conversations with, whether you're going to stop doing something, whether you're questioning something, whether you're going to delegate, whatever it is. And you can begin to have that conversation where you can say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I need you to critique this idea. What am I missing? Where can I be going wrong with this? Or I need you to collaborate with me. I am completely overwhelmed. I don't know how to juggle kids and home. And what are some options out there that I am not seeing? Or clarify as you begin to have some of these conversations. Say, do you understand what I am trying to communicate? Please ask me some questions. Sometimes we take offense to questions. We think you don't trust me, or you don't think I know what I'm talking about. That's why you're asking me questions. Sometimes clarifying questions are just that. I just need to know where you are so that I can help. Or you might be that person that needs care, that safe place to land, and be able to vent, and get to talk a little bit about what you're frustrated about, and not compare your suffering, as we were talking earlier. Or maybe it's time to celebrate something. When is the last time that you genuinely celebrated something with family or with friends? One of those things. These are the kinds of things that can help you identify, and make sure that when you are communicating with people, that you send them this code, the communication code. If I really need to vent and I call Julia, I'll say, Julia, I just need a little bit of time, and I just need you to give me some care. Now Julia knows, don't try and solve Maria's problems. Don't offer suggestions. She just needs a safe place to land right now. But if I go to Julia and I say, Julia, this is what I'm thinking I'm doing. I'm so overwhelmed. Help me come up with a better idea. I need you to collaborate with me. See, I'm sending a message to Julia so that Julia she can give me what I need. Oftentimes we fail to send that message, that code to the other person, and then we're disappointed with their response, right? It's like, man, I just really wanted her to collaborate with me. And instead, she just critiqued my whole idea. She just shot holes through it. And now I'm frustrated with the person on the other side. Well, I think it was about 10 years into our marriage that my husband says, "You realize I can't read your mind, right?" And I just thought, why not? I've known you for 10 years, why not? 28 years in, almost 29. I always remember that because he says, there's nothing I won't do to help you. But if you're expecting me to jump to the conclusions that I know what's inside your head, I'm never going to get there. I just tell me what you need, tell me what you want, and I will do everything in my power to make sure. So recently, I'm launching a new client there in Seattle. I don't know when I'll ever get to see him, but we're doing everything virtually. It is really tough when I launch a new client because I spend a half day with each of the leaders. So it is a taxing season. Usually it takes me a couple of weeks to get a client launched. And so I reached out to my son and my husband, and I said, okay, I need you guys to collaborate with me. I'm going to need some care because normally I'm the cook in the family and I love cooking, and I especially love cooking with someone else in the kitchen with me because I love having conversations. And so I said, I'm about to enter this super busy season. I need you guys to plan the menu, buy the groceries, and cook for like the next 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to be crazy. They're like, we got it. Don't even worry about it. And then, of course, I proceeded to tell them, well, you can make burgers on Tuesday, and then you can make tacos. And they're like, we got it. You don't need to collaborate any further with us, right? And sure enough, they've picked up the ball and they've just done an amazing job of doing that. Part of it is I ask for help, but sometimes I have a hard time letting go. But you know what? They've done a tremendous job. I know 10 years ago, I would have had a busy schedule. I wouldn't have asked for any help. I would have just ground myself to the nub. I would have been exhausted. I would have been snippy. I would have been short with people. Can't you see how busy I am? Can't you see I'm doing this for us? Blah, blah, blah. And never communicate that I needed collaboration, that I needed care. And so now I know myself, so I lead myself differently, and I send them the code of what it is that I need from them. And 9 out of 10 times, the people that you ask and reach out to want to know exactly what you need, because people don't like to not meet expectations. So I encourage you to use that communication code to deal with how overwhelmed you are with whatever the workload is or whatever is going on in your world. Make sure that you're not expecting people to just magically know what's going inside your head, or assume that what you need is, obvious, because it may not be obvious to them. So I want you to put in the chat, which communication code do you need to use? Think of a person in mind. Do you need to reach out to critique, collaborate, clarify, care, or celebrate? Go ahead and put those in the chat. Let's hear from a few of you. Which one do you need to use, and with who? With a friend, with your family? You don't have to name names, but just, can you think of an individual? Which one do you need to use, and with who? Need to use care with family. Care with my husband. Very good. Care with my son. Clarify with kids. Okay, care with husband and daughter. Very good. It all depends on the person and the situation, right? Yes, if you're low on celebration, find a way to do that. Find a way to, what is there that we can celebrate with colleagues? Yes, if your loved one is in a different state, absolutely figure out what can you do. I'll tell you, this one is hard for me because I naturally tend to critique and clarify. I can spot what's wrong with your idea, and whether I say it or not, I'm thinking, that's not going to work. I would have done this differently. I would have done that. And if that's what comes out of my mouth, it can be very critical and negative and hard for the person on the other side. So celebrate and care are ones that I have to be really intentional about and think about. So know yourself to lead yourself. Some of these are going to come natural to some of you. You might say, oh, I do this all the time. And some of these are going to be difficult for you. Whichever one you need to do, make sure that you understand which one you need to bring to the table, because the people around you need that. Okay. Yeah, there's some things that we weren't able to celebrate. But Christine says, thank you for all the people, right, who helped get her that promotion. Congratulations, Christine. We need different people in different circumstances. That's absolutely right. Thank you, Melanie, for that comment. Let's see. Okay, we've got a little bit more time. I want to keep moving. I want to go back to our gears, because I said I wanted to talk a little bit about, oh, no, they're back here. This is our toolkit, and we have many a tool for many situations. Okay, back to the gears. Shifting gears has just become harder, just like we were talking about. And let me tell you something that is, I guess I was surprised, but I'm seeing it over and over and over again. People lost their commute. And their commute was more important and critical in their life than they realized. So for some people, their commute was their gear one time. That's how they recharged. They could listen to a podcast. They could have silence. They could catch up with a friend. They could just, it was their time, right? Now, if you have little kids and you had to pick up kids, it was your time until you pick up the kids, right? Then all of a sudden, it's your gear two time with the kids. How was your day? What was going on? And now we have lost our commute, and I don't think we realized the impact that that has had on us. For some people, it was the commute to work this is how they got ready for the day. Maybe did a little bit of gear four. This is what I need to do as soon as I get to the office. I need to make these phone calls. I need to prepare for this meeting. Or on the way home, it was unwinding. It was processing everything that happened in the day, maybe even making yourself a note of something that you had to deal with. So sometimes you were using your commute for gear one time, gear two, maybe gear four. And so or for you, it was kind of like the neutral, right? Of from work to home, I needed that commute to shift gears. So I have one of my clients, when we started talking about it, when I started noticing this was happening to a lot of different people, I encouraged them, you know what, it's time to implement what I would call a pseudo commute, right? An artificial commute. You need to incorporate it because you need to shift from that fourth and fifth gear that you were in for work, especially if you're working at the dining room table. You're getting up and you're going to talk to someone and you haven't really shifted gears yet mentally. And one of my clients said, she says, I get up from the dining room table, I go plop down on the couch where my husband is. And he, after doing this over and over, he says, why are you always mad? And she said, I'm not mad. I don't know what you're talking about. He says, yeah, you look mad. You get up from the table and you plop over here and, oh, you can't believe what I get, my gosh. And she says, well, I'm not mad. I'm still thinking about work. Well, you look mad. And she realized, oh my goodness, I used to ride my bike home. And that was my time to unwind and get all of that. So by the time I got home, he saw the smiling person who was ready to say hello and engage in the evening. And instead he's getting, a big sorrowful sigh and a frown. And he's thinking, man, this is miserable. And so she incorporated an artificial commute. So now when she gets done at the dining room table, she goes to the backyard and she waters the plants and she feeds the turtles and she deadheads some flowers, And she just spends a few minutes out there to have it be her commute. And then when she comes in, now she's ready to engage and say, hey, so how was your day today? Even though they were both in the house at the same time. So think about your commute. What, as I'm describing that, have you lost in your commute? Which gear have you lost because you no longer have that morning drive or the commute back home? What's going on in your world as I describe your lost commute? What did it mean to you? And what do you need to do to create an artificial one, whether it is morning or evening, so that you give yourself some space to shift gears and connect with the people at home? Let's hear from some of you. Just zoning out and thinking about nothing, listening and singing to music, and the occasional kiva juice. Man, what a great routine, right? You had, and it's gone. What I've lost is the already thin boundary between working and not working. Tara, you are so right. You are speaking for so many people there. It was kind of like your own time, and it was legitimate to not have to be available to anyone, right? Because it was your time to just get home. And sometimes you took the longer way home just to get a few extra minutes, right, by yourself. It's significant. It's significant. Sarah's missing gear 1 and 2, right? Liz, gear 1, podcast, gear 2, calling old friends, but I have found other times to do these things. That is so critical. It is so important. It's not like, oh, well, it's gone, it's lost forever. Recognize that this is important. How to lead yourself during this pandemic. You need to take care of creating that space where you can get in and out of these gears and do those things that brought life to you, that brought energy, that gave you great satisfaction. It's not indulgent, it's not selfish, it's not irresponsible. It's you taking care of yourself. So I give you permission to do that. If you're struggling with that, I officially give you permission to create some kind of artificial commute, whether you carve out 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get that time back again, right? Amy says, my morning commute is now setting my son up for 2nd grade, checking his assignments and looking at his meeting schedule for the day. Now I'm tired before even looking at my meeting schedule. Elizabeth says, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. And there's some things that you cannot avoid, and there's some things that you can avoid. This is where gear 1 becomes especially important. Have that conversation. Use the communication code to have a conversation with someone saying, I am feeling super overwhelmed. What can we do so that I can carve out some time for you to get some recharge, and you can carve out some time for me to get some recharge, because I am worn out. I didn't realize the toll that this has taken on me. I've got to get my son ready for 2nd grade, right, in the morning. What can we do? Is there a break during the day? Is there something in the evening? What my husband and I have been doing is all electronics off by 8 o'clock. And most nights that works. And we can really be able to stick to that. And so that can be really important to really understand. Okay. Yes, Teresa, thank you for your comment. Will any part of this session address people who have not given birth or partnered up? I think all of these tools can be used with friends, with any type of relationship, family, friends, colleagues, using these gears, know yourself to lead yourself, and the communication code. Absolutely. I'm addressing some of the things that I am seeing a lot in some of the clients, but that's a great point. I think it's not just family members or significant others. It's really every one of our relationships. All of those relationships are impacted by the way we are leading ourselves. And those relationships are significant, whether they are work ones or family members. It's important. And I always say those key relationships are the ones that if you're going to focus on anything, focus on those, because those are going to be the ones that long term, they're going to be around you. You may not have the energy for a lot of people outside of those key relationships. That's okay. Focus on those that are important. Okay. Thank you, Teresa. And I'm mentioning, you know, significant others and children, but also with coworkers. Definitely, you know, colleagues. I don't know if you all are participating in meetings, team meetings. Your same thing applies to all of those. When's the last time, you know, maybe you had lunch with a colleague and you haven't had a chance to just really connect? And maybe there's more meetings than ever, right? Because of the way we've got the day stacked now. And so sometimes we have meeting to meeting to meeting, and that can be really taxing. So I hope that these tools, I think that's what we have time for, whether it's the gears or the communication code or the know yourself to lead yourself. It's being present, it's being productive, it is engaging emotionally and relationally, connecting with the different people in our lives. I think you'll be able to use these three tools to begin to see how it's impacting you and how you can lead yourself and how it might be impacting those around you. We always say, what's it like to be on the other side of you? Sometimes it gets hard when we get stressed and overworked. And so I hope that these will encourage you and help you to begin to see some of your relationships in a different light and give you a different perspective as you move forward and engage in work and with friends and with family and even inside the organization. Thank you so much for your time today. And I did a series on our Giant TV platform, and all of you can get a free account. I will send a link to Julia, and I will send a link to the series. It's the pandemic version. I talked to clients to see how they were leading teams. I addressed some of the things that I saw clients going through, and I will make sure that all of you are able to get access to that and many other pathway series that we have. We're addressing all sorts of issues, leading teenagers, kids, all of those things, working in teams remotely. So I hope that that resource is going to be helpful for you as well.
And I'll just say thank you so much, Maria. We always appreciate the time with you, and we will look forward to some future events very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate getting to see some of you and sharing some of this. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you have a great rest of the semester and see some of you in the spring. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.